Lo chashuv, al tidag.
Okay. All right. Oops. Let me just go in here. Okay. All right. Good morning, everybody. Wow, full table here. All right. So last week we ended off. We were discussing the Ramah had the comment of the Ramah that if you make kiddush and you don't have a suda, you're not yotzei, and he said the Ramah said you need to eat immediately in the place where you made kiddush. And of course, we discussed quite a bit about what does immediately mean. Does it literally mean time-wise? It's you have a very short gap between the kiddush and then the eating of the foods that qualify for a seuda. So I share there are some opinions that say yes, indeed. But we also share that other opinions, as long as you are continuing to stay focused on with the goal here, you need to go and wash your hands. You need to you're on the path to eating in the place where you make kiddush. Then that would be sufficient to fulfill this mandate of la'alter of doing it immediately. Now, the there were a few comments I wanted to focus on, because at the end of that comment of the Mishnah Berurah, he said, he talked about going yotza lachutz. That was what we saw in Yud Beis last week. That for whatever reason you have to leave the place where you made kiddush and go outside, and then you come back and you continue your meal in the place where you made kiddush, or you engage in a meal where you made kiddush. And the Shiari cast like, oh, that was fine. It's fine. But there were those who were machmir about this, and so the Mishnah Berurah had said that we should lechatchila be careful about this quite a bit. But the one case that he had carved out and said it was okay is if you had to use the bathroom. Now again, I pointed out last week the bathroom did not used to be in the house, so going to the bathroom involved actually going outside. But he says that it's mitzar hasuda, like when you just you clear your system, that actually will enhance your ability to eat this meal, to enjoy the meal even that much more. But I want to read an extra comment that I have here in my edition of the Mishnah Berurah. For those, I guess on this side of the table, it's number 15. But you don't need to just listen. And I'll read this. So it says here, "V'chein nohag hachafetz chaim." Chafetz Chaim himself was machmir for this. Don't go outside. Don't leave the room where you made kiddush. Right? His minhag was he wouldn't leave the room, so he would make kiddush and he would not leave the room to do netilas yadayim. He would ensure that the room was set up such that I could do netilas yadayim in the place. So Richie was just before the shir started talking about design of base medrash, or design. The idea of a design. So it's interesting. I happen to have noticed that over the last few decades there is again. I'm only been alive for those last few decades, but like there are many houses when they are constructed where they do try to put a little washing basin in the dining room, and I always wonder, why is it such a why are we trying to push this? Like, what's the we got to make it to the kitchen, and perhaps I want to suggest that maybe this has become a little bit of a minhag because of this. That there was a practice. The Chafetz Chaim himself in his own home. I don't know that in his house that there was like a indoor plumbing setup, and there was but a bowl and a pitcher were already ready to go in the room after kiddush, and therefore people didn't leave. At least the Chafetz Chaim himself didn't leave the room to wash somewhere else. So just noting that, and the Chazon Ish also, a great 20th century posek, did not leave the room where he made kiddush before he then had a place to wash in that space. The Chazon Ish lo lases l'netilas yadayim me'acheder shebo kiddush, v'afilu lebnei beiso hichmir, and he told his children also, right? All his family said, you also have to do this. Right? So they made sure that there was a washing station set up in the room where the kiddush was made. Now, just so you don't have to go home today and tell your family, by the way, we have a new addition we have to make to the house because Rabbi Klinger said so, right? The Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach in his Sefer, the Shvus Yitzchak, or it's quoted in the Shvus Yitzchak, in Hilchot Shabbat over there, Shaminag lahakel bazeh. Shlomo Zalman said that the minhag is to meikil, I mean, the people go to the kitchen and they wash in the kitchen sink, not in the same room where you made the kiddush. And the Kaf HaChaim, also paskins sheyitzil etzorach netilas hadayim bilvad einen echsheves kehefsek. If you're stepping into the next room to go wash your hands, that's not considered a hefsek mipnei sheila tzorach hasuda, because it's all for the tzorach of the suda, and there's therefore no hefsek. But be aware that there are some, big rabbanim, the Chafetz Chaim and the Chazon Ish, who did have this minhag to wash in the same space that they made kiddush, because they wanted Kiddush B'Makom Suda, and also particularly La'alter, to minimize the time in between the Kiddush and the beginning of the Suda. Yes,
It would only be in the case when you do not have a piece of cake right away. Right?
Okay.
Meaning, like, if you're going to have a piece of cake immediately,
then you've defined this place as Suda.
Right?
Yes, I think you're correct.
You make it and then you immediately go to wash.
Right. Correct. Yes, I think the idea is that if it's like a Shabbos morning situation here in Shul, right? You're trying to minimize the time between Kiddush and the first bite you take. You're trying. Again, there's a movement, by the way. And actually, in my extra little comments here, it's actually going to be, sorry, I don't want to give it away. It's in Yud Gimel coming up. It talks about the case where you move from one room to the other with that kavanah in mind when you make Kiddush. So, okay, well, let's now jump back in.
Rav.
Yes, go ahead. Same here.
Before you jump back, when we go for Kiddush in Shul on Shabbos, on Saturday, and we begin to eat, there's no yeshiva. People are all walking around.
Right.
How do you handle that? How do you see that?
Look, I think that, it is more ideal in terms of being koveya seuda for sure to sit. This is the argument behind making kiddush in a sitting position. But I would say after the fact, it doesn't preclude you from being able to engage in the seuda, so long as you have that in mind. That I'm being, yes, I'm standing, I'm walking around during kiddush, but I have in mind this is the seuda. And I think that's how Kemat every shul, handles this. Though there are shuls that make sure to put out tables. We do a little bit, but because some people are makbid, they want to be able to sit.
Didn't we learn Ein Kiddush Ela B'Makom Su'uda, Ve'ein Su'uda Ela B'Yeshiva?
Yeah, I mean, look, as I said, certainly ideal. Certainly, that is certainly the ideal. That is certainly level. Maybe Alex, you can use the word lechatchila here, and we will come to this a little bit more as we continue through this siman. We will discuss this a little bit more. And look, even when I was just flipping ahead, when you get to the beginning of the next siman about the breaking of the bread. They call the people who are doing this the misubin. Misubin is, we always like to sing it on Pesach. But misubin actually is a very important term because it doesn't mean just sit. It really means reclining in a very comfortable position where I'm set for the meal. Someone else will serve me. So yeah, look, ideal. It's undoubtedly ideal, but what happens if you don't? You might still be able to count that as seuda. Okay, now let's go back to Yud Gimel, which discusses the comment that even if it's not la'alter, but you have in mind to eat it right away. You make kiddush with the intention of eating right away, but obviously you didn't eat right away because otherwise. Then there's nothing to talk about. There's no differentiation between la'alter and had mind la'alter. So now let's see what this is. Yud Gimel. O shi'ehei. Miloshon o, from the language of o, right? Or that was used in the Ramah. Mivoar, it's explained. De meikara lo ma'iri kishahayad bidato beferish b'shas kiddush le'achol la'alter ela b'stama. that that to be in the first case, right, where we said, oh, you ate la'alter, we were not dealing with a case of where you had in mind explicitly to eat right away. Either you just made kiddush. Stam. I made kiddush. I'm trained like clockwork. I know I have to make kiddush at a certain point during my Shabbos. But I wasn't thinking explicitly, I'm going to eat right away after I make this kiddush. But nonetheless, you're okay because you ate right away. And then the next case comes to teach us, afilu im ero achar kach ones v'lo achal miyad el achar kach gam ken yotza. What does he say? That if you had in mind at the time you made kiddush to eat immediately, and then something, even if something were to happen, ero means like if something happened afterwards, some sort of ones, you get pulled into something. I can't tell you how many times I'll walk between the shul and the social hall. And a parent will ask me, a child will ask me, I got a scrape, I need to go to the office, they need a Band-Aid, this person needs this thing, they have, this pressing question, and things that, between there and there doesn't always go so smoothly, right? So what happens is something on the way between Kiddush and eating something, some situation happens, okay? So gam kein yotza. What the Ramah is teaching us is that you're also yotze, as long as you had in mind that you wanted to eat right away. And some ones happen, something beyond your control. Even though you didn't eat right away, you can still be yotze. Ve'im yotza gam imkom b'ntayim. Take it even further. Even if you left the spot, let's say you made kiddush in the social hall, and something took you away. A child comes in and says, I scraped my knee. I need help me, Abba, right? And then I come back and I continue eating in the same place where I made the kiddush. He says, that in this situation there are some who are machmir. Because now you got pulled away into a different space, and you didn't have that in mind. The space change actually might be the bigger problem. Because now I didn't have that in mind that I was switching spaces. So some are machmir on this question.
Someone scraped their knee.
I know, of course, you got to take care of it. I'm not saying don't take care of it. Ask the shalom. I'll take care of you if you need help. Yeah, correct. It says it right here in the extra commentary. Anyways, so and then he ends here with a similar case, not the one of what you had in mind, but where there's a time gap in between that's built in because of the movement that you have to make, like the way we do kiddush here from the main shul to the social hall. He says that v'huadin kishaya tiraklin gadol. We talk about that, say, big like hallway or a hall. I might say a very large event space. Yeah. V'halach mipina lepina. So I make kiddush over here. And then my table, I get my place card. I say, okay, the table's clear on the other side of this room. So by the time I get through this crowd and whatever, it's a couple minutes to get to the other side of the room. I have in mind I make kiddush here, but I want right away to get to the other space to eat. Which is all under one roof. From the ground floor to the upper floor, and just simply the walking, the time it takes. Nishtaha ezizman. I'm not a Usain Bolt. I can't get from one spot to the next and be there in 9.5 seconds. Like, it'll take me a few minutes to maybe. By the way, sometimes you go. There are. At least here we're on the same floor. I feel like I'm aware of some shuls where the kiddush room is on a different floor, right? You got to go down, you got to go up, you got to go,
But it's Gag Echad.
That's right. That's right. In Riverdale, that's very good. Our cousin who made Aliyah to Karmei Gat. So yeah, he remembers, right, that their kiddush room. Remember, they were at the RJC. The RJC, the kiddush is down on the lower floor, right? The shul's up there, right? So in New Rochelle, right? Do they make kiddush after that? Or they make it downstairs? So they actually make the kiddush downstairs. I'm saying like when the rabbi makes kiddush, it's downstairs.
For that I don't know. But
The food is set up is downstairs. Right. Anyway, you know what their minhag is over there? Do they make the kiddush before they go downstairs? All right. Next time someone will report back. A little spy mission. You didn't hear that, YouTube.
Yeah, but Rob, the other young Israel is not so strict. So
Rabbi.
Okay. Yes.
The rabbi only late. I don't know when he introduced the minhag of doing it in the main shul.
When Rabbi Rubenstein was the rabbi, it wasn't like this.
No,
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that. I didn't know how long that minhag went back.
Ruben's made it main shul.
I always remember the
Sham Ruben Yisrael. Yeah, always had somebody standing up at the.
I remember that.
Yeah, the main shul. Yeah. Well, Avi Schwarzberg when I first got here.
Yeah, Fitman, can you confirm? Was the kiddush in the main shul? Back in Hinda, was it always in the main shul?
I don't remember, but wait, the main shul was right in back. The social hall was right in back of the main shul.
Well, when the shul was in the social hall, when it was, of course, and the kiddush was in the back, it was one room. Yeah. In the early days of the new shul, the new So Richie's saying he has the memory of Avi Schwartzman singing. Schwartzmer, right? Was singing Visha Meru. He had some sort of tune in the shul. I don't know if that sounds familiar. I'm getting a few blanks there.
I think Avi was gone by the time we did the construction.
Hinda says that he was gone by that time. The construction.
So he may have been singing, but it was in what is now the whole
late 90s.
There you go. All right, we'll have to rehash the history. I don't know. I wasn't here, so I can't weigh in.
You're right. It was one big room.
Right. So Richie's saying it was one big room, right? So that is a much easier situation. If you have look, I grew up in a shul like that before they built a new building, which was that
the Columbus shul.
in Columbus, right? Actually, now that you mention it, it's very interesting, right? So the shul started out as one big room. It was like it took over an office space. And so they made kiddush, and the kiddush went up. They took the accordion, not even like a built-in accordion, like the one on wheels. And they kind of like, okay, now you can take the food. It was all one room. But then when they built the new building, and the kiddush was set up in the main, entranceway area, which was right behind the main shul. I just remember the rabbi always would make kiddush in the main room, not the main shul, in the kiddush room. He would. Now we were a smaller shul where it's easier to get quiet and easier to.
Young Israel Columbus.
No, it wasn't called that.
Just trying to think of shul like in Harbor.
Yeah.
They have big shul. So there's a shul and there's a big kiddush room.
Yeah.
They're on the same floor. But when they make kiddush in the shul,
right,
they have mazonos with it.
Interesting. In the shul?
In the shul.
That's interesting.
A whole platter with a couple water and mazonos.
That's interesting. Okay. It's an interesting part of the eating in the shul thing. Is a hard, whatever. We're going to talk about that maybe at some point. Okay. All right. So, anyways, Gam Kate Ein Sarach Lachlo Kaddish. She says here at the very end of this comment that you don't need to go back and make another kiddush because again, that's me. You had in mind miyad, even though there was a transfer of location, and that takes a little bit of time. Okay, let's go to Yudalad now. Right. So here the Rama was saying that even without this, even without the idea of immediacy, right? Even if you ate, right? So if you had in mind, if you don't have in mind, I'm going to eat right away, and I make kiddush, and then I actually wait. I don't feel like I'm in a big rush. Even if you eat in the same place where you made the kiddush, but you waited a long time.
No.
Right? He says here, no yotze. So now let's take a look at what the Mishnah verse says about this Ramah, the comment of the Ramah. Hainu, shelo haistadato lechol miyad. I didn't have in mind to eat right away. I made kiddush. I know I'm kevan shadato lahaftik bidvar macher. I know I was going to make kiddush, and then I had three things I have to do. I have to go give a shir. I have to learn Mishnah with the little kids, and I have to whatever. Right? So I have things I have to do. So vehifsik afilu haya hefsik achar kach mechamas ones. So then I do, and I follow through on my plan. Then I do something else, or make kiddush, and I wasn't thinking I was going to eat right away. But if I eat right away, it doesn't bother me. But then some ones happens, some situation comes calling, and I have to go address it. And even if I come back to this same place, in either situation.
Exact place.
Yes. Lo yotza. You do not fulfill the mitzvah of kiddush b'makom seuda. And you would have to really go back and make a new kiddush. It's not, you didn't fulfill a mitzvah. Venira de imaya hefsek mechamas tadvarim sheim zorech seuda. If the break was because of things that were related to the needs of the meal, like I wanted to go dress the salad, so I made kiddush and then I went to go dress the salad. So it takes a good few minutes, making sure I have the exact whatever, and okay, I pour it over, and then I make sure that I start taking the brisket out and I'm putting it onto the nice platter that I can bring out to my guests in a few moments. So I'm doing things that are letzorech haseuda, right? Or I'm getting the challah knife, or I'm looking for it. Where is the? Do you know, guys? Do you know where someone put the challah knife? I can't find it. It's not in its usual spot. And now it's a 5 minute. Now it's a 5 minute. Break because I can't find the knife. But it's all a tzorech hasuda. That's different. That's not lo choshev hefsek, because everything I'm doing is furthering the goal of the meal. My mind is on the suda, but I'm doing things that are related to the suda. I'm just not eating. That's all. But I'm moving towards that direction. So that's not the same case. All right. So I just think that hopefully that gives you peace of mind here, that you make kiddush, and then sometimes it takes a while, but especially if you have a lot of people, have guests, and it takes a little bit of time between the time you wash. You get to the kitchen and you wash, and people are patching around with like some of the food, getting it ready. That's fine. That's all l'tzorech haseuda. And again, to the extent that you can try to minimize the time, it's better. But you certainly don't need to go back and make another kiddush. Yes.
After shul, you have families and friends, whatever. They want to sit down and have some dairy before they have the meat, right? You make the kiddush after the meal.
You're talking about for like Shavuot now?
No, Shabbat.
For Shabbat, so they have dairy and then they have meat. Which is fine. You can actually do that.
Coffee, then they have their coffee. They want to have coffee. They want to have whatever.
Okay.
So you need to make kiddush before you start eating, right?
Absolutely.
So kiddush on the wine.
Once you daven shacharit,
right.
You can't have water even. Yeah.
Right. So make kiddush for that purpose.
Yeah.
You wanna join them. And
You have water.
So so let's say you spend an hour eating cookies, crackers, whatever.
Yeah.
And then you break the bread. So is that considered hefsek? Because you're eating mezonot.
No, because you're eating. So yeah, we're gonna get to that in Sif Hey. The answer is no. I'll spoiler alert. We'll explain more why that's the case. I know. Can you believe it? But we'll talk about that in Sif Hey. Yeah, Richie.
So just to have a general overview of what we're talking about. We generally make kiddush at home Friday night.
Mm-hmm.
In general. And then we generally make kiddush in shul Shabbos morning.
Mm-hmm.
Generally. These halachas, of course, they make a lot more sense if we're talking about doing it at home than, with all the distractions when you're doing it in shul.
Yeah.
I think that the whole idea of having kiddush in shul, I think the whole idea of it was, davening was very long Shabbos morning.
Yeah.
And people might go past chatzos
without eating. It's a big problem. Yeah.
And therefore they felt, okay, you make kiddush in shul, you have some mazonos, and now you're not fasting.
Yeah.
And this way you're not crossing that threshold. So people started making kiddush in shul.
Yeah.
So when you make kiddush in shul, it's like a different whole set of circumstances than making kiddush at home. When making kiddush at home, it's much easier to make kiddush and eat and sit down and have a meal.
100%.
In shul, you make kiddush, you have a piece of cake, and that's it.
Right. No, 100%. On a technical level, can you Can you give yourself a check mark for kiddush from Makom Suda? The answer is yes. But you do have an obligation of a Suda with bread, right? And that has not gotten a check mark yet. That has not gotten a check mark. Right. And to the extent that you go back to your house and somebody didn't hear kiddush or somebody didn't have kiddush from Makom Suda, I can't tell you how many times even me, I'm here, and I'll hear kiddush. I never even make it to the eating part. In which case, the kiddush I heard doesn't help. And I need to make sure for myself to make kiddush because I eat kiddush malchus suda. So people have to really keep track of.
So the normal way of doing it is you get home, you make kiddush again.
Make kiddush. Right. It's a bar piragrafen. There's no. It's not a bracha levat. Not a bracha levatala bracha yisrael.
That's the daytime kiddush.
Right.
The nighttime kiddush.
Friday night is more complicated because you have a mekadesh shalosh, which which we're actually going to talk more about in a moment in Sif Daled. But for yourself personally, you only need it once. And you can't make it twice unless there's another reason to be making it for somebody else. Okay, now let's take a look at Tes Vav. Here the Ramah was saying that if you had in mind that you're not going to, you had, I specifically had in mind I wasn't going to eat. It's an interesting kavanah. I have in mind I'm not going to eat right away.
But your example is a great one. Your example is
right. I have 3 things to do.
For me, like I know, so you probably have this right every week.
Right. By the way, I will tell you, by the way, that you might actually find me at some point. I might sneak away to the kitchen at some point after I've had a chance to daven, and maybe the main shul davening is still going on. But I've davened in 3 different places, and then I'll sneak into the kitchen, and I will take a cup. I will make kiddush for myself, and then I will find a rugelach, whatever, a little piece of cake, and I will eat it and. Because sometimes I end up in the situations I'm with the kids learning the Mishnah over here. I'm doing davening with with some of their grade. I'm with the team minyan, and I'll pop into team minyan kiddush and whatever. And I miss their kiddush because I was doing something else that I wanted to have a little, whatever, a little kugel with the kids. And so I covered myself, and I have in mind okay, this I'm good now. Now I have in mind all the places I'm going to end up noshing here and there. But if you don't do that, yeah, of course I make a bracha achron after I'm all said and done. But
it's not like you could have in mind. Well, I'm having a meal later.
No. Yeah, if I'm going somewhere else, that doesn't. No. That doesn't help me. All right, so here we have.
But Rav, Rav, that sounds good in the telling, but you're absolutely abandoning the notion of ein kiddush ela b'makom seuda.
But I make sure where I make the kiddush, I have a little suda in the kitchen.
Yes, but if you don't and you have just the kiddush,
that's the problem.
Then you owe the kiddush, right?
You're absolutely right. There's going to be one opinion we're going to see in Sifhei that maybe the kiddush wine is enough, but not everyone agrees to that. We're going to see that in Sifhei, so we're closing in on that. But Teslavi says, Perush, turn the page here, I had in mind specifically, I'm going to make kiddush, I'm not going to eat for a while. I don't know. Or, I got something to do for the next half an hour. And also, it was in my mind, Gamkein, also that I won't eat in this house, but I'll eat in some other house. Right? So I'm going to make kiddush here, and I'm going to eat somewhere else. But since I had in mind, nevertheless, after I made this kiddush with this intention that I'm not even going to eat here, I'm going to eat somewhere else, which is not really, it doesn't really help you usually. So I had kind of the wrong kavana. And but I turned out and I ate right away in the place where I made kiddush. So we're leading.
But learned that if you don't do it right away, then you're not yotzei, or you go to another place.
So if you eat right away, even if you don't have the right intention, you're good. And if you have in mind to eat right away, but you don't because something happens, you're also good. So as Aruch HaShulchan puts it, we're makil on both counts, on both sides of this. As long as you either eat right away or you had in mind to eat right away, you are good. We're lenient on both cases. Right, to the point where you have this ridiculous kavana where I'm not going to eat right away, I'm not going to eat here, I'm going to eat somewhere else, which is not the right kavana to have. But then I go ahead and I eat right away, you're still okay. Right? That's the legal extreme. Which, again, hard to imagine such a kavana. I mean, it's different even than Jeffrey, what I was talking about, where I don't have in mind that I'm going to eat in 30 minutes. I have in mind I want to eat right away, and then a bunch of things happen in between. This is the legal extreme, and yet even that's okay so long as I then eat right away.
Yeah. So if you go into the kiddush and you finish the shul,
Yeah.
and but you're in a rush because your wife has lunch ready at home.
Mm-hmm.
So you quickly have a little shot with the boys,
Mm-hmm.
and then you run out and you go home. That's no good.
No, that's no. You got to make kiddush at home. And by the way, you probably shouldn't have even had the schnapps because you're not supposed to really eat until you make kiddush. But that kiddush didn't really count. So that's why it's Now we're Lamaisa territory. I said the wrong thing now. Yeah, go ahead.
Sometimes, I'll say personally,
Yeah.
I will walk out of shul and I will have a drink before I have a preparing or a mizonos or something. Is that not appropriate?
Hey, look, if
prefer
you
to have a mizonos,
so I'm gonna back off here for a moment, and I'm gonna go back a few weeks, or maybe already a month or so at this point. If a person holds of making kiddush on schnapps, then you make kiddush, and make kiddush on schnapps, and then
But he doesn't say.
so then you make kiddush again. Meaning, if
later on.
no, I mean, okay, take right. I walk out of the shul. I go get a drink.
Right.
If I'm saying the kiddush in the shul was my kiddush that Rabbi Morgenstern made, right? I'm not making kiddush.
You were yotze with that.
I shouldn't do that.
What you should do first
is have a mizonos.
Have mizonos, then go get the shot.
Or it seems, which I also do sometimes.
Yeah.
Which is I will go get a drink and I will make another kiddush.
Right. If you had in mind that you're going to make your own kiddush, right. And Morrison's kiddush, well, but for Shabbos day, he's talking about it's really just shackle.
So if you really want to be machmir, you can do both.
Right.
Have 2 drinks.
We are a very machmir show.
That's correct. Yes, we are machmir. We're that's very machmir all year. It's very strict. We're machmir all year round unto Purim. Okay, we don't want to get it wrong on Purim, so we make sure all year round we get it right. Okay. All right. So the answer to that question is you should try to put a mizonos in between there. And by the way, that's cholent or a cracker or cake or whatever cookie, right? Unless you're gonna make kiddush yourself. By the way, if people are whatever making kiddush, by the way, I think I told you a few weeks ago they had that Friday night dinner here with the soldiers who were visiting. It was last week. It was not just a week before. And I ended up making, even though they made kiddush in the shul, I made kiddush again. Now, unless anyone saw me and think, he said one thing in this year, and then personally he did another thing. My wife had missed the kiddush in shul, so I knew that she missed it, so I had in mind I was going to make kiddush again anyways with her when she got there. So in case anybody was like, why did he make kiddush again? He didn't hold by Rabbi Morgenstern. No, that was not what was happening there. Yes, Simeon, go ahead.
Rav, when your wife came to shul, and you greeted her having made kiddush before and fulfilled your obligation, why can't she make kiddush herself for herself?
She could. I don't think she didn't want to, so I made it. But I also wasn't yotze. I also wasn't.
That's acceptable.
But also, I wasn't yotze. I don't know that I was. I had in mind that she wasn't there, so I wanted to make the kiddush with her, like along with her. Plus, it would have been a situation where things were not miyad, because I wasn't going to start eating. I wasn't going to start washing and making hamotzi until she was there, and she was whatever she had put the kids to bed, so she came a little bit late. So it wasn't going to be a situation of miyad, or even like moving towards it. I was going to wait until she got there. I think for a few different reasons, it was a halachically perhaps more preferable decision that I made.
Because remember, we had learned earlier in an earlier shiur back down the road that for a Friday night kiddush, which has midoraisa roots in it and is stronger.
Yeah.
You were in shul and you heard the kiddush as part of the tefillah, and you go home. She has a stronger obligation to make the kiddush herself.
Yes. Yeah. No. There's definitely quite a discussion about that, about the oraisa, the rabbanon, the oraisa versus not, versus having fulfilled or discharged your mandate. Yes. We're actually about to get to that right now. Here we are. We are now in Sif Dalet, up to Sif Dalet. On that last note that we just said, here we go. Yachol Adam, back on top now on the Shulchan Aruch. Yachol Adam, lekadesh lacher mafal pisha ina ochel imohem. You can make kiddush. This is a fascinating halacha. You can make, a person is able to make kiddush for others, even though he doesn't eat with them. Did who have a makom seuda? Because for those people, it's makom seuda. They're gonna eat here. I'm not gonna eat here, but they are, and therefore I can make the kiddush for them. Now this
They don't hear it.
already harkens a little bit to the Gemara where Shmuel says you can make that when you make kiddush in shul, the reason is for the guests, so the orchim who are staying in shul, who are eating, eating and drinking and sleeping in shul. But presumably, you could have the chazan of the shul, the rabbi of the shul, get up and make the kiddush, and they're going to go home afterwards and eat with their family. So that wasn't kiddush makom suda for them. But he says that you can make kiddush for other people, even if that's their makom suda. So where this actually comes up in a very interesting, I've mentioned this. Yeah, for sure. Actually, let's keep reading the Shulchan Aruch because let's lay on the table the halachic problem with this. Okay, there's no halachic problem, but there seems like there should be a halachic problem, which is the general rule when it comes to bracha rishona. If I make a mizonos on cake, and Tommy's also having cake, and I say it out loud, and I have it in mind, and he has it in mind, he can say amen and eat his cake. But you are not allowed, even though birchas hayayin generally, you're not allowed to emotzi others if you don't benefit with them. If I'm not going to eat cake, I cannot make a mizonos for him. He must make the mizonos. I can't discharge your bracha rishona obligation unless I also am engaging in the same bracha rishona. Right? I'm also eating a mizonos. Then I can say mizonos and he can say amen. But we both have, I have to eat. I have to be neheneh. So that's the general rule. What did I just do? I said, Borei Pri Hagafen. And then I said, here, you guys have a great time. I'll see you later. How could I do that? I wasn't neheneh. So came the high, but this is a very important rule to remember.
You were not neheneh because you're not drinking?
Yeah, by then, maybe I gave it to the one of the people there to drink.
Even
if I drank, it wasn't kiddush makom suda for me.
Where's the food?
So for me, I didn't do it. It's not a suda.
But that's not what it's saying. You're not neheneh. So I guess my question is,
because if I'm neheneh, we're going to see in Psalm Sifei, if I'm neheneh, if I benefit, I have some of it. All right, I have some of the wine. Even maybe that might be enough to consider it makom suda, according to some. Some say, oh, maybe you have to have also a cracker or something of the zonas. But here we're talking about either the case where I didn't do kiddush b'makom suda, meaning I made the kiddush. Maybe I drank, but then I left. And so according to some, that's not makom suda. Or I made kiddush and I gave it to the people who were listening to my kiddush. They drank. Now, this is a very important rule because the only time you can get away with making a Borei Pri Hagafen and not drinking it, and someone else has been neheneh, he says to you, "Cave in the high Borei Pri Hagafen who choba la kiddush." It's gufa a part of the mitzvah. It's gufa a part of the mitzvah. The Borei Pri Hagafen is a part of the obligation of kiddush. It is under the rubric of a mitzvah. So it's kiddush hayom dami. It's like the mitzvah of kiddush hayom that Borei Pri Hagafen. Now that doesn't mean daytime kiddush. It means kiddush hayom, like the mitzvah of kiddush. And I'm allowed to help be motzi others, even though I don't benefit with them, because there's a rule here that underlies this, right? That is called Kol Yisrael Arevim Zeh Lazeh. Okay, that we are all guarantors for each other. If you don't do a mitzvah yet, if you haven't done a mitzvah, it's my problem. It's actually one of those beautiful rules in Judaism, that if you haven't done your mitzvah, it's also my problem. And therefore, I can help you do your mitzvah. Right? I'm not off the hook for your mitzvah if you didn't do it. That's the only reason. And so actually, there's a beautiful tshuva at the beginning of the Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach's Sefer. I remember seeing it here 2 weeks ago when I was preparing, and now I don't know if I'm going to find it very quickly offhand.
Is there a problem because if you say it, what can I get for not drinking it, not drinking the wine? Is there a problem? Because you're doing it for someone else, but you said, well,
as long as they drink it.
Oh,
someone has to drink the wine for sure, because there still is a bracha rishona component to it. Because it becomes subsumed into the mitzvah. I don't have to drink it. It's like a mitzvah I can do for other people, which is why under the chuppah, you hear the rabbi makes the Borei Pri Hagafen
and does not drink.
Not generally speaking, the rabbi does not drink it. He gives it to the chassan and kala. Why? Because many see this as a birchas mitzvah, and therefore and that's why the chassan usually needs to drink first. By the way, because the chassan is the one that he's being mekadesh the isha, right? That's what this bracha is in relation to, and he's making it on his behalf, and he gives it to him, right? You drink it. Anyways, and the other situation where this happens, another situation is correct, the bris milah. There is interesting though. There, the general minhag is that the person who makes the Borei Pri Hagafen should take a sip. You don't have to have like a cheek full or anything. There's no minimum amount that you really need in that situation. Here, there is. The idea of using a wine of Borei Pri Hagafen and making Borei Pri Hagafen at bris milah, it come along. It seems like later on to enhances the mitzvah, but there it may not be in part of the mitzvah itself of the in that situation. So there people hedge, and usually the person who makes that bracha will take a little sip. If it's a day when it's like Yom Kippur, right? You can't so you give it to a katan or something like that. But that's so that already shows you, by the way, that maybe we allow it because it's a part of the mitzvah. Otherwise, how can you make a Borei Pri Hagafen for the child? Anyway, so
the Gemara over there, Rav, offers a couple of alternatives. One is you can give to the Isha Hamiyaledes when she is within the 8th day of having given birth. She's a chola.
It depends. On Yom Kippur, it's not so simple because her exemption is for 72 hours following the birth. If she doesn't feel, then it's really up to 7 days. If she says, I still don't feel well, once you get to day 8, if she really is not feeling well, that's a separate question, though. She probably, whatever. Then it's really a difficult situation. If she's not feeling well, obviously she can't fast because it would be life-threatening. But a different example I'll give you is, let's say, if it's a Tisha B'Av. I have been to. I was at a bris. Actually, one of my first times here in the shul was a bris on Tisha B'Av before I started working here. That birth was your friend's bris. Okay, Spencer. That was Spencer's bris. Yes. So that was his bris on Tisha B'Av. I remember that. And
Tisha B'Av's
in the summer.
Lion camp. Yeah.
No, you were not at camp. You were 2 months old. Oh yes, he will be. Yeah, his birthday's in the summer, I guess. So, anyways, I remember I came that day, and it was after we finished keynotes. It was the strangest thing, and there was a bris after keynotes, and like what a transition from keynotes to a bris. Makes sense, and I remember, I think that they gave it. I don't remember. I think that they gave it to the mom. Because at that point there's no obligation on it for a d'Rabbanan fast. For a newborn mother like that, for a d'Rabbanan fast, there's no obligation typically because they're a chola, she'ein bo sakana, fine, but. Anyway, so there you have some wiggle room to who to give it to, but again, somebody's making it, and that the person drinking it is not the person who made the kiddush. That's or the Borei Pri Hagafen. Anyways, let's get back to this.
My grandson's bris was on Yom Kippur, and Rabbi
who drank the wine?
Only the baby. That's what Rabbi Luxstein said.
Yeah. Right, correct. So they dip it in, and the baby takes a little, Okay. By the way, see, mechanech the baby already making a Borei Pri Hagafen.
Teaching him how to enjoy alcohol at an early age. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, correct. It's your Jewish tradition. No cheek full. No. Okay, all right. And then the Rama adds in here, this is interesting, right? Even when it's daytime kiddush, which is really at its core just the bracha, that you can make for other people. We're going to talk about why. That seems like a little bit less than the Friday night obligation. Friday night, I can get it. It's a whole special bracha. It's a mitzvah d'oraisa. But even Shabbos day, you can do this for people. But there's a big caveat here. Next words in the Shulchan Aruch, meaning like this only applies, when it's not the following situation. The hu she'einam yodim. The people you're making the kiddush for don't know how to make kiddush for themselves. The hu she'einam yodim. Right, and that's when this is okay. Which okay, so fine. Let's keep going. That's very important. We're going to talk a lot about that.
It's not for everyone.
Not for everybody. Nope. Correct. V'imadayin lo kiddush le'atzmo. And if you don't make kiddush, if you still didn't make kiddush for yourself, yizar shelo yitom imohem. She'asur lo litom ad sheyikadosh b'mkom sudaso. And by the way, dafka, if you're not going to eat there, then you shouldn't taste the wine, because you should really do this in the plate. You should really have your wine and your grape juice, whatever, in the place where you're going to engage with the meal. And that's how he ends this sif. Now, there's a lot to talk about here. This is going to take us, into next week already to finish. But I do want to start here.
So, Rav, your personal obligation will remain intact.
Yes, I still have an obligation after this kiddush. Correct. By the way, and I wanted the one. Oh, I remember the Mincha Shlomo. The Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. He has a really fascinating shayla. I think he gets from a Rav. And I think I've mentioned this once in a different context before, where there was a Rav who said, I have congregants who are in the hospital, and they're not able to really make kiddush for themselves. They're not in a state where they can either do that so easily. Remember, we talked about if you can't even drink the grape juice, that maybe questionable whether you have an obligation. But they can eat, right? They just, to make kiddush, whatever. Maybe they just can't do it. They can't hold the cup. They're too weak. So he says that I want to go to, but the hospital is a little bit far from my house. For me to accept Shabbos, go to the hospital, come back. I can't be in shul, be there good for my family. Like, can I before I accept Shabbos? But it's already after Plag HaMincha, so you could make kiddush. You could accept Shabbos. Can I go to the hospital? I'll drive to the hospital. I'll go around to the various patients, and I'll make kiddush in each one of their rooms. And then they'll eat. They have their little, TV tray, whatever. They're not religious. They don't know the brachos. Can I go and make the kiddush for them? And then I'll drive home afterwards, because if I can't drive home afterwards, I can't do this. Right? I can't make this. This hospital is too far away. So he asked this question to Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. It's an interesting question, by the way, because there are a couple of points here. Number one, right? How can I make kiddush without accepting Shabbos? But for them, they're accepting Shabbos. For them, it is. And now at the end, he sort of concludes, I think he says it's not lechatchila, but if you have no better option, then there's room to say you can make the kiddush for them, because for them this is a complete acceptance of Shabbos, and for them this is their makom suda. I was merely helping them facilitate that. What was that? You give it to either. They could drink through the. You could drink through they could drink through a straw or something like that. They'll they'll have or maybe worst comes to worst, he tastes it, you have it, and then they'll eat their meal, and there was kiddush b'makom suda, I have to go back because that doesn't count for me, and I haven't specifically. He has in mind when he makes kiddush, I'm not accepting Shabbos, which is a very strange das to have when you're making kiddush. But again, it speaks to the weightiness of the principle of Kol Yisrael Erev Zelazeh. I'm not even going to, again, it's not ideal, but to even say that I'm not accepting Shabbos in the making of the kiddush for somebody else shows you the power of Kol Yisrael Erev Zelazeh as a halachic principle, that there's a thought that you could even do this. Again, it's not ideal. Much better to not engage in such a difficult shayla. But, you're talking about the spiritual lives of a lot of people who otherwise they're going to have nothing. And so, there's people who are trying to help them in that circumstance. Actually, I see it here in number 19, by the way. For those of you who, are using the same edition, he says, V'yamadayin eino chayav b'kiddush kigon hamekadesh le'adam shekibel alav Shabbos miplag hamincha ve'etzel hamekadesh adayin hu chol. He stopik bazeh. And Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach writes, "B'shas adchak efshar lahakel bazeh." Right, and I'm giving you the context of that of that tshuva. It was the people who were in the hospital, right? V'rak be'ofen arai v'layachidim. You don't do this all the time. Only for particular individuals who need this in the hospital, right? It better if they has in mind. Right? Right, they talked about the interest. Can you be motivated people through the telephone? Right? Let's say they pick up the. Can you motivate them through the telephone? He said, I don't like that because then they're using the telephone. And the people on the receiving end are using the telephone on Shabbos. So even though that's how they're going to accept the Shabbos, but then you're on the phone when Shabbos is starting for you. He said, yeah, that he doesn't like for the one who's on the receiving end of that. But again, keep in mind that again, you won't have this in here. But I learned that tshuva, and that's the context. It was the hospital. It was far away, and the rabbi wanted to be able to give them some sense of Shabbos. Right. Okay, now let's go to Tes Zayin here in the Mishnah Berurah. The lekadesh la'acherim. V'hu adin lektanim. The lektanim mutar lekadesh af al pi she'ena ochel imahim. Kedei lechancham b'mitzvos. This is important, and I try to encourage this with our kids here in shul. That's really, we should start being mechanech our kids at a certain point that they shouldn't eat on Shabbos morning until they hear Kiddush first, right? And so even if I'm not going to eat with them, let's say I'm not done yet, but I want to, so then you know what I should do? I should make Kiddush for them on Shabbos morning. At the end of their group's davening, or not just me, I'm saying like anybody should make Kiddush for them before they, I used to have the Mishnah thing in here, now we do it in there, and it's not donuts, but it's something else. But, it's important to actually teach the kids. Guys, before you take the donut, before you take the cupcake, we're going to make Kiddush first. And I'm not going to eat here. I'm going to eat. I'm going to go later, and I'm going to have something else somewhere else. But he says here that even for Ketanim, it's mutter to make Kiddush in order to educate them in mitzvos. But there's a caveat, okay, that they need to know. If they don't know, that's right. I'm sorry if it's offensive. But it's only if they don't know how to make Kiddush. If they know how to make Kiddush, which on Shabbos day is Bar Mitzvah, you know what you should do? Clever idea. Have one of the older kids. Here, take the cup, make Kiddush for everybody. Say Bar Mitzvah for all the other kids. Everyone, shh. Okay, listen. He's going to make Kiddush, or she's going to make. They're going to make Kiddush for each other. Kids make Kiddush for each other. That's even better. But if they're 5, 6, 7 years old, they don't know. They're not focused. They're not going to do it the right way. Make Kiddush for the kids. Be mechanech them in mitzvahs that before we eat on Shabbos, we make Kiddush. So it's kids will remember that we always. That's how. If you have consistency, they will remember the principles and the rules that we teach them.
Then why can't I make?
You should make it here before you eat whatever Kiddush you're going to have. Here in shul. That's the point, right? Okay. Same thing like gadol. If the gadol knows how to make Kiddush on their own, obviously you shouldn't make Kiddush for them. Imahem, right? Even though you're not going to eat with them. And by the way, maybe I'm already done eating. I already ate. I'm done. I did my mitzvah. I had my mitzvah. I had my Kiddush. I'm good to go. I can still make Kiddush for other people who have not fulfilled their mitzvah of Kiddush Makom Suda. Yeah, we're about to stop here. I know. Okay. Sif Katan Yud Ches Imahem. And here we're talking about even though I don't benefit with them, the general rule is that if I don't benefit with another person, I can't make a bracha rishona with them. The Kaim Alan Kol Birchos Han. Here's the rule. Kol Birchos Hanenin Ein Adam Motziach Es Chavero Im Hu Atzmo Ein Oneh Ne'az. That when it comes to all Birchos Hanenin, a bracha rishona before you benefit, you eat something, or it could be for smells too. Then a person cannot be motzi his friend unless he also benefits at that point as well. That is a rule across the board. Rak b'davar shehu chov. When can you get away with it though? When there's an obligation, a mitzvah that's hanging over your head. Could go in Kiddush. Then just generally, if there's a Kiddush that needs to be made, I can be motzi others. And that Borei Pergafen gets wrapped up into the Kiddush and it's considered a part of the mitzvah of Kiddush. Adam motzi chavero, a person can help his friend discharge his obligation. See if you attest v'chaf. Okay, and that is discussed earlier in Shulchan Aruch. And the extra comments number 21, they write here v'davar v'tama davar b'yer sham shamitzvah. What is it? What's the explanation given over there that I can help you be mostly your mitzvah? Shamitzvos hein chov al adam v'chol Yisrael arevim zeh lazeh. We are all of Israel is a guarantor towards one another. Ukeshaver lo yatzei dechovaso b'mitzvah nechshav av hu lo yatzei dechovaso. And that if my friend hasn't done his mitzvah, I haven't done my mitzvah, right? And therefore I'm allowed to. Therefore, I have the permission to help you fulfill your mitzvah. But by birchas harei, that's not an obligation. You want to eat an apple? Well, it's not an obligation to eat an apple. It's not an obligation to eat cake, right? Afkim who wrote lehanos chayav b'bracha. But I want to eat the cake, so chayav b'bracha. Mikol makom biyado shelo lehanos v'lo yeh chayav levarach. I can't. That's not an obligation. Close whatever as I say, like if you didn't do your mitzvah, that's my problem too. But if you didn't eat your cake yet, you can eat your cake and you can have it too. I can't make your bracha, right? Like I'm not connected to your cake in desires. I'm connected to your mitzvah though. And that's something where I can help you. And if the Bora Perigafit is wrapped up into the mitzvah like it is on Kiddush on Friday night, or even Shabbos day, then I can help you. Even if I'm not going to benefit. Okay. We'll talk more about this next week. There's so much more to talk about. And we'll talk about the idea of Hu she'einam yodim, that they themselves cannot do it. What if they can do Kiddush, but they'll make lots of mistakes if they make Kiddush? They're not a bucky in how to make Kiddush. Should I insist? No, I'll make Kiddush for you. It's okay, I got you. Because they might mess up on the words. So we'll talk about this. Next time. Next Sunday. Yeah, next Sunday is not nothing going on, I think. So we're good.
Shavuot.
For next Sunday. No, Shavuot is tonight.
How am I going to the mall?
What was that?
It's the seventh day.
It's the day. It's the very part of still of the makeup of the tashlumin of the korban chagiga of Shavuos, right?
Let's see.
Still no tatanun at that point.